And maybe I sound a bit ignorant, but Suvralina Mohanty, are you from which place?
I am currently staying in Delhi NCR, Ghaziabad.
Ghaziabad.
Yep.
He is sister-in-law.
Ghaziabad.
She's sister-in-law of Pradeep Mahapatra.
Oh, I see, sister-in-law. That means you're a sister of his wife, is it?
Yes. That's correct.
Okay.
So I think we are starting now. It's already 5.
Yeah, it's time.
Okay. Namaste. Welcome to the first session of day 1 as we are organizing this program on this occasion of Guru Purnima. We will have study, discussion, question and answers, and of course, meditation conducted and guided by Olande Ananda. I would like to invite Brother Pradeep H. Gohel, President, Indian section of TS, to invoke the universal prayer and deliver a short speech. Welcome you, sir.
Okay. I believe I will just recite the prayer since this is a Zoom meeting. It is hard to have everyone participate in it. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Thank you.
Suvralina ji.
Would Brother Kohil like to say something before we move into the introduction part?
We are not able to hear you, Subralina ji.
I can hear you.
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, I would request Brother Pradeep Gohil ji, if you could speak few words before we get into the study and discussions.
Okay, thank you. Venerable Brother Olande Ananda Thero, sisters and brothers, on behalf of the Indian section of the Theosophical Society, I welcome you to the 2-day function on the auspicious day of Guru Purnima. I'm very thankful to Brother Ananda for accepting our invitation and talking to us on the Buddhist text, Mindfulness, the Heart of Buddhist Tradition. I'm also thankful to Brother Pradeep ji and Suvralina ji for organizing the 2-day study. I've been asked by Pradeep ji to give a short talk on the importance of Guru Purnima. This day is observed on the full moon day during Ashadha month as per Hindu lunar calendar. This year it falls on Friday, July 23, 2021. It is the day when our people offer deep respect to their spiritual masters, teachers, or gurus. In Sanskrit, Gu means darkness and Ra means the one who dispels it. So the one who is capable of removing the darkness is a guru. This is what is said in the Advaita Upanishad. The guru is a spiritual guide who enlightens his disciples through his knowledge and teaching. It is beneficial for everyone to carry out yogic sadhana and meditation under a guru. It is believed that Lord Shiva became Adi Guru, the first guru on earth, on Guru Purnima. A yogi emerged in the Himalayas about 15,000 years ago. Nobody knew anything about him. The simple-looking yogi had sharp and extraordinary personality. There was no sign of life when one saw him. But sometimes he used to share tears of ecstasy. People did not understand the reason for this. Exhausted, he slowly started going. But 7 determined men stayed. When Shiva opened his eyes, those 7 people wanted to know about him. The 7 men wanted to experience ecstasy. Lord Shiva ignored their request and told them that they were not yet ready to experience ecstasy. Ecstasy is an overwhelming feeling of great happiness or joyful excitement. He told these 7 men the methods of meditation and became engrossed in meditation. Many days and years passed, but Shiva did not pay attention to the 7 men. After 84 years of spiritual practice, at the time of Dakshayanam in the summer solstice, Shiva incarnated as a yogi, saw them and found that all 7 persons were ready to attain knowledge. He realized that there could not be any delay in imparting knowledge to them. On the next full moon day, Shiva accepted to be their guru. After this, Shiva turned towards the south and sat down and passed on the science of yoga to these 7 men. These 7 men were later known as Saptarishi. This is the reason why Lord Shiva is also called Adi Yogi or Adi Guru. Buddhists celebrate Guru Purnima in the honor of Lord Gautama Buddha. It is believed that Lord Buddha gave his first sermon on this day. After 5 weeks of achieving enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, Buddha went from Bodh Gaya to Sarnath, a suburb of Kashi or Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh, and gave the sermon on this full moon day. Even in Jainism, this day is celebrated as the beginning of Chaturmas or 4 months, which are reserved for penance, austerities, fasting, and religious observances. Theosophy has taken the best of all religions and observed this day in meditation with the masters in their mind. Your real guru is truly within you. You are the one who can remove all fears and ignorance. Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans once said, "He alone is the true teacher who is illumined by the light of true knowledge." Your guru helps you connect to the guru within each one of you. He resides in your Vishuddha Chakra, located on the throat and awakens when you surrender to your higher self. The relationship between the guru and the disciple is considered very sacred and is purely spiritual in nature, based on jnana or spiritual knowledge and sadhana or spiritual practice. A guide is needed in one's spiritual journey, and he needs to be an authority in a particular field. A person who is an authority in the field of spirituality is known as a guru. He is someone who has already walked the spiritual road under the guidance of his spiritual guide and has access to the universal mind and intellect. The guru guides his disciples according to their spiritual level and the capacity to imbibe knowledge, and helps them to develop skills such as perseverance, dedication, tenacity, compassion, etc. All these skills are intrinsic to being a good seeker and vital to sustaining our spiritual journey. May this Guru Purnima day accelerate your spiritual journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Gohil. So without wasting any time, I would like to invite Brother Professor C.A. Shindeji to have a formal introduction of our today's speaker and guide, Brother Anand.
Thank you, brothers and sisters. Especially thanks to Sister Suvarnalina for inviting me to introduce today's guest speaker, Venerable Olande Ananda Thero from Sri Lanka, who is a Buddhist and also a Theosophist. Especially, we have invited him on this occasion, a very auspicious occasion, as our brother Pradeep Gohil pointed out. It is the full moon, which is known as the Guru Purnima. On this occasion, we have invited him, and we are really blessed, will be really blessed by him soon. He is greatly revered in Sri Lanka, as I personally witnessed, because when I visited Sri Lanka, it is he who gave us supportive and kind help, especially presiding in TS meeting with Sri Lanka Theosophical Federation activities, and members especially who are active, and President Dumendo also took very interesting part. So I know him very well. He is well honored in Sri Lanka and as well as in all over the world, I think. Both are in communication through their many online WhatsApp, Facebook messages all over the world. His biodata is very long. Few important events of his spiritual life I would like to put before you. Olande Ananda was born in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. He studied economic sociology at the University of Amsterdam. He went to Sri Lanka and was ordained there in 1975. He then practiced meditation, received higher ordination in 1977 in Sri Lanka, which has become his homeland now. He has conducted numerous teachings, retreats in Germany, Sri Lanka, India, Bali, Japan, Pakistan, France, England, and also conducted Vipassana meditation, Vipassana retreats in South Africa, meditation seminars in Himalaya, Indonesia, Holland, and Australia. Still, online meditation programs are continued. I have been attending his YouTube meditational programs on and often, which are on the online. He is a member in International Network of Engaged Buddhist, INEB, International Network of Engaged Buddhists. He is also a member in Network of Western Buddhist Teachers Conference, member in Advisory Board of Mandala Project of Tibetan House in New Delhi, and even he has visited many times to Adyar, to our Theosophical Society, Krishnamurti Foundation at Adyar. And as per, if I am correct, he has conducted 3 times the School of Wisdom at Adyar and has given lectures in many international convention, Theosophical convention at Adyar. With these words, I am happy. It is definitely a short introduction, but now I call upon Brother Venerable Olande Ananda to conduct and bless with the study class on Buddhist text, as it is mentioned, mindfulness. And I am sure he not only mentions mindfulness, but also we need all other awareness. With this, I thank you very much. Suvarnalina, now it is over to you. Thank you.
Well, I think according to the program, I could go directly after Professor Shinde to my item. And to sort of clarify the subject of my talk, it's not only that book by Venerable Jnana Ponika called The Heart of Buddhist Meditation, which is about mindfulness, but also especially because this talk is on the full moon of the month of Esala, the Esala Purnima, the Guru Purnima, I thought of giving a short talk on the significance of this particular full moon, if you don't mind. And even if you do mind, there's nothing I can do about it, I suppose. But you see, this the historical background is maybe interesting because after the Buddha's enlightenment, 2 months after his enlightenment, the enlightened one arrived at the deer park or Megadaya in Saranath. And Saranath is about 5 kilometers from Varanasi. And so the Buddha had especially gone there in search of his 5 companions with whom he had been practicing tapas for nearly 6 years. Intensive self-mortification in search of mind over matter. So these 5 yogis, they were still practicing that ascetic practice, very extreme self-mortification, whereas Prince Siddhartha had already given up that extreme practice and had started to eat a little in the beginning and then normal food like that. So when Prince Siddhartha nearly fainted from malnutrition while crossing the Niranjara river at Bodh Gaya, he decided that he had overdone the ascetic path and needed to come to a middle path. Neither the luxury of the palatial life of the prince, nor asceticism of the yogis. As you probably know that the Buddha was Prince Siddhartha before and was given 3 palaces by his father, King Suddhodana, one for the hot season, one for the dry season, one for the rainy season, and surrounded by luxury, but that did not make him happy. So while sitting in meditation near the river, close to the Sujata Gram, a young lady called Sujata, daughter of the village chieftain, and her servant came to do a puja to the tree. Seeing Prince Siddhartha sitting in meditation, she asked him whether he was a Ruksha Devata, the tree god, to which the prince replied, no. Well, what are you? Are you a human being? To which Siddhartha replied, no. Then what are you? She asked. I am awake, the Buddha to be replied. Awake. Sujata offered the kheer, the milk rice, and the prince started eating small portions and to regain his strength. And then after his enlightenment in Buddhagaya, the Buddha wondered whether there were any beings who would be able to understand the subtle discoveries which he had made. He wanted to share his knowledge, but he first thought of his meditation teachers who had taught him tranquility meditation. And that he realized already with his supernatural powers that his teachers had already passed away. Ala Rakalama and Ramaputta were no more. So then he thought about the spiritual comrades who had been with him in search of the truth together for many years, like 6 years. Then he realized that they were not dwelling in the deer park in Sarnath. Even nowadays, there is a deer park at that place where, there are deer, and that's the place where these ascetics were gathered. Then approaching them, they did not feel like getting up. This is all according to the text you see in Buddhism. It's not sort of my own fantasy, but it says they were not willing to get up because they thought that this man had fallen off the path by eating again. But as they perceived a special aura around him, they knew something fundamental had happened to him. And then they rose and invited the Buddha to take a seat and to teach them what he had discovered. I think in our visit to Varanasi, we actually visited that place also in Sarnath, isn't it? With the statues of the 5 followers and the Buddha preaching to them, it's all there. Then the Buddha taught them the middle path, the Madhyama Pratipada, neither extreme wealth and sensuality, nor extreme self-mortification. His speech is now known as the Dhamma Chakrapavatana Sutta, or maybe a little bit Sanskritized Dharma Chakra Pravartana Sutra. And the setting in motion of the wheel of the Dharma is the meaning. So if you are interested, I will just recite a little bit of this sutra to get an idea what the Buddha was actually talking about. So in English, it sounds like, I have heard that on one occasion, the Blessed One was staying at Varanasi in the deer park at Isipatana. Isipatana means where the rishis were staying. There he addressed the group of 5 monks. And he said, there are these 2 extremes that are not to be indulged in by one who has gone forth. That means those who have become a monk. Which 2? That which is devoted to sensual pleasure, with reference to sensual objects, base, vulgar, common, ignoble, unprofitable, and that which is devoted to self-affliction, painful, ignoble, unprofitable. Avoiding both of these extremes, the middle way realized by the Tathagata, he who has thus come, that is the epithet for the Buddha, producing vision, producing knowledge, leads to calm, to direct knowledge, to self-awakening, to unbinding. Unbinding means to get out of this tangle of samsara, basically. And what is the middle way realized by the Tathagata? That producing vision, producing knowledge, leads to calm, to direct knowledge, to self-awakening, to unbinding. Precisely this noble eightfold path, namely right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So this actually is eightfold, but it is sometimes divided into three, namely ethics, then concentration or meditation, and then wisdom. But here it is mentioned full is 8 steps. So this is the middle way realized by the Tathagata, that producing vision, producing knowledge, leads to calm, to direct knowledge, to self-awakening, to unbinding. So basically, this is very core, you could say, of the Buddha's teaching, the Eightfold Noble Path. But the Eightfold Noble Path is also a part of what is called the Four Noble Truths. The truth of dukkha, the cause of dukkha, the end of dukkha, and the path leading to the end of dukkha. So the last one is the Eightfold Path. So it goes on saying, now this monks is the noble truth of, and this translator had used the modern word stress. This is the noble truth of stress, but it's actually dukkha. Birth is stressful, or you could say birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, death is dukkha, sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, and despair are stressful. Association with the unbeloved is stressful. Separation from the love is stressful. Not getting what is wanted is stressful. In short, the 5 clinging aggregates, that means body, feelings, mind, consciousness, all that is painful. And it is stressful or dukkha because it doesn't give us 100% satisfaction. Even the pleasant things in life don't stay forever. That's another truth that one discovers in meditation. When we talk about mindfulness meditation later on, we will come across such things as the characteristics of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Those are 3 very important terms. So then it says, and this, monks, is the noble truth of the origination of stress. It goes by the origination, then it goes of the practice of the cessation, and so on. So it is enumeration of the factors, stage by stage, that all these things should be realized and then should be practiced and then overcome. And then it says vision arose, insight arose, discernment arose, knowledge arose, illumination arose within me with regard to the things never heard before. This is the noble truth of stress. Well, it goes on actually by repeating this for different kinds of things. The cause of the dukkha itself, and then the cessation of the dukkha and the path leading to the sensation of dukkha. It's just a repetition. So this noble truth of the cessation of stress or dukkha is to be directly experienced. That's probably the most important part, that it's not a matter of hearing and repeating or reading about it or thinking about it, but to experience the cessation of the suffering for oneself. That is the aim of the Buddha's teachings. It's not a kind of theory or a dogma that one would have to accept. Actually, the Buddha himself said, you don't need to accept anything of what I say. Find out for yourself if it makes sense, if it doesn't go against your reason. If you think it is acceptable, then accept it and practice it. So basically, actually, you know, this is what the Buddha said, and then gratified the group of the 5 monks, delighted at his works. And while this explanation was being given, there arose in the Venerable Kondanya, one of the 5 ascetics called Kondanya, the dustless, stainless Dhamma eye. That means whatever is subject to origination is all subject to cessation. Whatever comes up has to come down, basically. Whatever arises also passes away. And he realized that. And then the Buddha, or the Blessed One, who had set the wheel of Dhamma in motion, the earth devas, those are kind of Bhumi Devata, they call it, you know, those devas who are living close to the earth, they cried out, at Varanasi, in the game refuge or in the deer park at Isipatana, the Blessed One has set in motion the unexcelled wheel of Dhamma that cannot be stopped by Brahma or any contemplative Deva, Mara, or God, or anyone in the cosmos. On hearing the earth Devas cry, the Devas of the 4 kings' heaven, it's a higher type of Deva, they took up the cry. Then the Devas of the 33, whatever Deva realm that is, then the Yama Devas, the Tusita Devas, the Nimantarati Devas, the Parinimitta Vasavati Devas, and the Devas of Brahma's retinue took up this cry. At Varanasi, in the deer park, at Isipatana, the Blessed One has set in motion the unexcelled wheel of the Dhamma that cannot be stopped by Brahma or contemplative Deva, Mara, or God, or anyone at all in the cosmos. That is the way they mentioned it, sort of unexcelled. It's so superior. When you look at the statue in Varanasi at Sarnath, at the Mulagan, the Kutiya, this beautiful gilded statue, you see the Buddha preaching with his hands like this. And that is the wheel of the Dhamma he is setting in motion. And that wheel is also visible standing straight in front of him, and the deer sitting on either side of him. That is visible there. So, so in that moment, that instant, the cry shot right up to the Brahma worlds, and this 10,000-fold cosmos shivered and quivered and quaked, while a great measureless radiance appeared in the cosmos, surpassing the effulgence of the Devas. That's quite poetic, but that's how they described it. And then the Blessed One exclaimed, "So you really know, Kondanya? So you really know?" And that is how Venerable Kondanya acquired the name Anya Kondanya, Kondanya who knows. So this is accepted as the first teachings of the Buddha, basically the first speech that the Buddha gave after his enlightenment. You know, to get from Bodh Gaya to Sarnath is about 250 kilometers on foot. There was no Indian railways or anything like that those days. Then, in certain Buddha statues, we see the Buddha preaching with his hands in the wheel chakra posture and the wheel of the Dhamma below, which I just mentioned, which denotes the first preaching. In yet other Buddha statues, we see the Buddha holding his right hand down, or you see in the picture, it looks like, oh yes, there, it looks like the right hand, but down, touching the earth as the witness to his enlightenment. So that is actually the time of the enlightenment in Bodh Gaya, and then the mudra of the wheel is actually the first sermon in Sarnath. So from that time onwards, more and more young men started following the Buddha and became bhikkhus, monks, some attaining arahathood. And when there were 60 arahats, the Buddha sent them in 60 different directions. Not like the, how do you say in America, the Mormons go 2 by 2 by 2, but in the Buddhist tradition, they went all alone. And for the welfare and happiness of the many, not to convert people to a religion, but it says, Bahujana Hitaya, Bahujana Sukhaya, for the welfare and happiness of the many. And soon after the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Buddha went to visit his relatives in Kapilavastu, which is sort of what is now the Nepali border. His son Rahula was by that time about nearly 7 years old, and his wife Yashodhara, who asked for their son's inheritance, then the Buddha replied, he will give his inheritance to little Rahula by making him a monk. That was the kind of reply. And so Rahula became the youngest 7-year-old, and that also became the minimum age for monks to get ordained. Not even full ordained, they get the Samanera ordination at that time. But there is an exception in the Tibetan tradition. If one is a recognized Tulku or Rinpoche, of course, then at the age of 1.5 or 2 or 2.5, when they are recognized, they already get the robes, but their hair will be cut at the age of 7. That is then the symbolic age that they really become ordained as a monk. So then soon, a women's liberation movement started among the noble ladies of Kapilavastu. 500 of them came to the Buddha in a procession, asking him for ordination as bhikkhunis, ordained Buddhist nuns. At first, the Buddha refused twice. Don't know why, but anyway. But then, with some persuasion of his chief disciple Ananda, the Buddha gave in to the request and started the Bhikkhuni order, 5 years after the order of monks. This is claimed to be, by Buddhists, to be the first women's religious order. However, although the Jains also had Bhikkhunis, which may have actually preceded the Buddhist order of nuns. So it is thus that the full moon of July, Asala Purnima, is such an important event in the Buddha's history, in the Buddhist history. It's also the beginning of a 3-month retreat for the bhikkhus, bhikkhunis in the Theravada tradition, during which they have to observe certain rules. Today, actually, in a little while, there will be a ceremony invitation by some lay people of the monks who are staying in the monastery here to spend these 3 months here and observing certain rules and regulations. And then it actually ends between the full moon of October and November. It's divided between temples over these 4 weeks between the full moon of October and November. However, in the Mahayana tradition, Mahayana Buddhist tradition, like the Chinese, the Vietnamese, the Korean, etc. I'm not sure exactly about Tibetan, I think similarly, they have a different period of the 3 months, or Chaturmasya, as brother just mentioned about the Chaturmasya. In the Hindu tradition also, and Jain tradition, it's the time actually that the rainy season, when they believe that it's not good to trample these fresh grasses and things like that for the monks, and they started building monasteries for the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, and then they were starting to bring food to the monasteries, and that was the beginning of the Chaturmasya tradition. It's Chaturmasya, although it is 3 plus that part of the 4th month between October and November. But in the Mahayana tradition, it starts on the Vesak or Vaisakha full moon, that's in May, and it ends in Esala, this particular full moon, in July, August. So, well, may the teachings of the Buddha of setting the wheel of the Dharma in motion inspire you to find your own middle path to liberation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And that is the first part of my talk. Let me just do something here. Yes, because as promised, we have the study of the what is called the book or the text, Buddhist Meditation, the Heart of Buddhist Meditation. It is a classic nowadays, written by a German monk called Jnana Ponika. He actually came to Sri Lanka in 1933. He was of Jewish descent, and he fled for the regime of, the Nazis and Hitler. He came with his auntie to Sri Lanka, and he started studying Buddhism, and then he became a famous scholar, actually, of Buddhism, and also a good meditator. So the word for the kind of meditation of mindfulness training is Satipatthana Bhavana. Sati means mindfulness, Patthana means base or basis, and Bhavana means development of mind or meditation. So the subtitle of the book is A Handbook of Mental Training Based on the Buddha's Way of Mindfulness. And this particular type of meditation is considered to be the very core of the Buddha's teachings on meditation. There are many, many meditations, but for instance, yes, I hope you don't mind me saying so, but when the Prince Siddhartha was looking for the truth, let's put it that way, when he went to the forest and was meditating and was seeking out teachers, the teachers who gave him the meditation techniques gave him certain type which we would call tranquility meditation, samatha bhavana. a kind of technique which brings your mind to calm state because of, for instance, concentration on an object, either an external object, staring at something, or an internal object, maybe even in the third eye, whatever it may be, or a kind of a sound, maybe a mantra, different kinds of techniques which would bring oneself to a kind of peace of mind. But as J. Krishnamurti used to mention from time to time, that is not real peace of mind, it is just a peace of the mind. A peace of the mind, if you see what I mean. Namely, it may concentrate the mind on a chosen object, and then it might exclude other objects from coming in, maybe thoughts, maybe sounds, maybe other kind of objects that might come through the senses. Sometimes even in certain yoga techniques, they close the senses, so we don't smell and hear and see by going like pranayama and then deep breath in. Well, we might get a very high kind of experience at that time, but when you come out of it, basically you are back to square one, so to speak. So it doesn't solve the existential problem of dukkha. Basically, that is what it is. It doesn't overcome the cause of one's own suffering or unsatisfactoriness. So that is why they say, and that the Prince Siddhartha, in his search, he knew that those very good yoga teachers who were teaching him the meditation, they could only go up to a particular point, like where he could, for instance, he could do without food for a whole week and not move, sit motionless. That was one of the achievements in that particular meditation. But he realized there must be something else, must be something more to this, meditation, or to the goal of meditation. Of course, he himself, as Prince Siddhartha, the future Buddha, he didn't know what he was going to experience. But after some time, and after finding all these things, then he started teaching this kind of meditation. The Heart of Meditation, of course, it's a title given by the author. And then the way of mindfulness, mindfulness and clear comprehension, the 4 objects of mindfulness. Let us talk about that. Because basically we do have different kinds of objects that we can become aware of. Not external, can become aware of different things, but internally, we can become aware of our body, we can become aware of our feelings, and we can become aware of our thoughts, and we can become aware of our consciousness. So these kind of objects, they are actually part and parcel of what we experience all the time. So the Buddha would call it Kayanupassana, Vedananusati, Chittanusati, and Dhammanusati. That Dhammanusati is a little bit difficult one, but Kayanupassana would be to be aware of your body. And that can be in different ways. For instance, simply, you can be aware of the fact that you are sitting, or standing, or walking, or lying down. Those are different kinds of awarenesses of the body, simply. But you can also be aware of, for instance, whether the body is heavy or light. It feels heavy or it feels light. Or it feels warm or it feels cold. So, or you are aware of whether you are sitting or standing or walking or lying down. Those kind of awarenesses of the body are meant by the objects, one of the four objects of mindfulness. Then when you are supposed to be aware of the Vedana. Now, Vedana means feeling. And Vedana could be a physical feeling, like a sensation, or it could be a mental feeling, like an emotion. So those kind of different kind of emotions or feelings can be aware of as they take place. It's not that you have to search for these objects, but they sort of tend to come to you while you are sitting and observing basically your body and mind. So the mind also can become an object of one's awareness. Now, mind is one of the first teachings of the Buddha in the Dhammapada is that the mind is the forerunner of all states. It is the mind which decides by its own intentions whether it thinks something good or bad, or says something good or bad, or does something good and bad. So this is the intention which counts and which makes for the karma that we create. So basically, when you observe the thoughts in your mind, you're also observing the karma in a way. And then the other kind of what they call Dhammanusati is the different kinds of, how do you call this, the qualities. The qualities of the things that you are experiencing, or the characteristics, for instance, that you are experiencing. Now, you can become aware of the fact that the things that you are experiencing are what you call, they are changing all the time. If you look at it closely, then you see how it comes and how it goes. These objects don't remain the same. You might like them to remain the same, but they are not. They don't stay the same. So then you start getting an insight into the nature of changeability, or the nature of anicca, what is called, the changing nature of, well, basically everything under the sun. Maybe except for nirvana, the rest is all conditioned thoughts, feelings. The sun and the moon and everything is basically conditioned, and therefore not 100% the same, actually never the same, is always changing. Now that insight occurs just from observing while sitting and paying attention. It's a kind of mindfulness of body and of mind also. Maybe when we are aware of the body, we don't become aware of the changing nature so much, because We don't see the changes from before in the morning and in the evening. Unless you're very tired, maybe you see that you look tired in the evening, but the next morning you look fresh again, and then you think, oh yes, I am still, young or whatever. But the fact is that we are changing moment to moment, and that is what is to be realized, which helps us to actually overcome what is called attachment to oneself and to the body and the feelings, the attachment to oneself. So it is the attachment which actually creates conflict. If we accept the change, then there's less conflict. If we fight the change, then we are always having a problem. So to see the change and then to accept it, say, yeah, that is the way it is, and then to live with that, oh yes, that is then quite more, how do you say, acceptable and realistic, rather than what we call living under delusion. That is one important word in the Buddhist terminology, is delusion. Not only illusion, but also delusion. So delusion means that we project something onto the reality, which is not really there. So we project what is called permanency onto impermanent things. And we hope that this body will be permanent. But of course, everybody knows that the body is not permanent. We hope to make it permanent as much as possible, but there's nobody who has lived forever in this world. But so the kind of attachment to the state that we are in can actually create a kind of conflict and non-acceptance of what is. So the seeing the things for what they really are in their, what you call their reality, namely everything is changing, everything is also non-satisfactory. That dukkha or unsatisfactoriness is something that also most people do not like to accept. We think that, life is beautiful. Well, sometimes it is beautiful, but it's not always beautiful. So even the most beautiful things in life, sometimes, not sometimes, they will have to disappear. So then we are always searching for some kind of satisfaction, but somehow or other we say, oh, is that all there is in the end? Even the richest people say, oh, is that all there is? So, because they don't realize that nothing has the possibility of satisfying us forever. And then, because the time is certainly coming to 6 p.m., the third characteristic I will mention now to close that off is the characteristic of non-self. And that is a typically Buddhist terminology, the anatta, which means there is no such thing as an eternal, everlasting, unchanging self or soul in all this. And that, of course, is in conflict with some of the beliefs in other religions, if you want to make it into a conflict. But if you try to understand it, then, and maybe we could do that in our next teaching, that's basically, or maybe through the questions and answers. We first have a quarter of an hour of a little break. And then I think 6:15, we come together, isn't it, Suvralina?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Brother Ananda. As we know, the word Buddha means enlightened, and the path to enlightenment is attained by utilizing our moral values, meditation, and wisdom. I'll just quote the incident when what you shared. When asked for inheritance, monkhood is given to a 7 years old. This is truly an act of an enlightened one. So with this, let us take a break for silently absorbing the text as shared by Brother Ananda, and meet after 15 minutes for this session to continue, wherein we'll have discussions, question and answer, and meditation. You may put the questions in the chat box, so that it will be easy for us to quote the questions and then get the answers from Brother Ananda. And anyone would like to add something, you're most welcome. But let us put the questions in the chat. There might be some technical glitch where we might not hear the sound properly. So let us put the questions in the chat, or if you wish to ask directly, that's okay. Brother Shikhar, if you would help us out in this 15 minutes time while we are silently taking a break and absorbing the text, would you like to display something, a music or visual, whatever you wish to, so that we come back in 15 minutes, please?
Yes, we will be playing the mantra chanting Om Mani Padme Hum video. But before that, I request Pradeep ji to stop that live streaming only. And then I will start.